Stop scrolling. What if I told you that one tiny Roosevelt dime in your pocket, yes, a regular looking 10-cent coin, could be worth over $191,650 right now? These aren't rare museum pieces. They're everyday US dimes hiding unbelievable errors that turn pocket change into life-changing money. And the craziest part? Most people walk right past them without ever knowing. Let me show you exactly what to look for. Imagine holding a tiny silver-colored coin in your hand, one that most people would overlook without a second thought, yet this little coin could secretly be worth more than a luxury car. The 2006 Roosevelt dime might seem ordinary at first glance, but hidden among the millions minted that year exists a rare group of era coins that have stunned collectors, pushed auction rooms into a frenzy, and fetched jaw-dropping prices reaching from $31,000 all the way up to $130,000. And the wildest part is that these coins are still out there, still circulating, still appearing unexpectedly in pockets, coin jars, cash registers, and old drawers waiting to surprise the next person who spots their tiny clues. To understand why a coin worth just 10 cents can be worth more than most people's yearly salaries, you have to take a closer look at what happened during its minting. The Philadelphia Mint in 2006 was running at full speed, striking millions of Roosevelt dimes for everyday commerce. But whenever production scales into the millions, the odds of mistakes skyrocket too. In this case, those minting errors created some of the most exciting discoveries in modern pocket change. Collectors love the Roosevelt dime series because it's simple, clean, and classic. But when a mistake occurs, whether it's a dramatic off-center strike, a double rim, a broad strike with no ridged edge, or even a die-clash imprint, the familiar design suddenly transforms into something unique. And uniqueness is everything in the world of rare coins. Imagine a coin that shows Roosevelt's profile shifted toward the edge, leaving a thick blank crescent on one side. Or a dime where the outer ridges never formed because the coin slipped out of the collar during the strike. Errors like these don't just look unusual, they immediately signal a rarity created by accident and saved by luck. Many of these 2006 dimes escaped unnoticed into circulation before anyone realized what had happened at the mint. Decades later, some of them are still being found by people who think they've just pulled a regular dime out of change. What makes these specific errors so valuable isn't just that they exist, but that they exist in extremely small numbers. The kind of dramatic minting mistakes that generate high collector demand usually represent only a tiny fraction of the total coins produced. And the fewer examples known, the higher the value shoots. Some of the most astonishing prices paid for a 2006 era dime came from collectors bidding furiously against each other, trying to secure a piece that might not appear again for years. A pristine, dramatic error with incredible eye appeal, like a sharply struck off-center example showing full detail, can command a price so high that it leaves newcomers speechless. That's how we end up with a 10-cent piece selling for tens of thousands of dollars and even reaching over $100,000 when the condition and rarity align perfectly. But what keeps collectors obsessed with searching for these coins isn't just the value. It's the thrill of discovery. Anyone, literally anyone, can stumble across one of these hidden treasures. You don't need to be a professional collector. You don't need to buy rolls of coins from the bank. You don't need to attend auctions. All you need is a moment of curiosity, a quick glance at your change, and the awareness to recognize something that looks a little off. Some people have found valuable dimes lying on kitchen countertops, inside purses, or mixed in with loose parking meter change. These stories spread across coin forums and social media because they feel like modern treasure hunts where ordinary people win. Collectors recommend checking 3 things when it comes to spotting a valuable 2006 Roosevelt dime. First, look at the strike. If the design is shifted, especially more than 10 to 15% off-center, that's an immediate red flag. Second, check the rim and the edge. If there's no ridging, or the coin appears wider or misshapen, that's a sign of a broad strike error. Third, look closely for doubling, on the letters, on Roosevelt's profile, or on the torch and olive branches on the reverse. Even minor doubling can attract interest, but dramatic doubling sends collectors into a frenzy. But there's also something exciting about how these coins connect to American history and design. The Roosevelt dime has been in continuous production since 1946, honoring President Franklin D. Roosevelt's legacy and his fight against polio. Its timeless design makes any major error feel especially striking because the coin is normally so consistent and predictable. When something interrupts that visual rhythm, it stands out in a powerful way. That's why collectors love error coins. They aren't mistakes to them. They're living snapshots of a moment in the minting process when something unexpected happened, something that left a permanent mark on a coin that should have looked like every other dime in circulation. The 2006 Roosevelt dime also marks a time when minting technology was improving, but human oversight was still necessary. Machines were fast, but not perfect. And sometimes coins slipped through the cracks. Those lucky survivors are now the stars of high-value auctions. Stories from collectors who discovered their first major error usually share a similar tone: shock, disbelief, and excitement. Many describe holding the coin under a bright lamp, studying every detail, comparing it to normal dimes, searching online, and finally realizing they're holding something extraordinary. That feeling is what keeps people checking their change every day. Imagine you're standing in line at a store, you get your change back, and something about a dime looks strange. Maybe the rim feels smooth instead of ridged. Maybe Roosevelt's face seems too close to the edge. Maybe the reverse looks doubled. And in that moment, you might be holding a coin that could turn into thousands of dollars. That possibility makes the 2006 dime one of the most thrilling modern coins to watch for. Collectors often talk about the importance of condition, and they're right. A dramatic error in worn condition might still be valuable but not life-changing. But a dramatic error in pristine mint state condition? That's when the big numbers appear. That's when auction rooms buzz with excitement. That's when bidders push the price up, knowing that an example in this condition might not appear again for a decade or more. And that's exactly how we get those top-tier sales, the ones where a 2006 Roosevelt dime reaches incredible heights like $31,000 or rises all the way to a staggering $130,000. But today, collectors and treasure hunters alike continue to search for these hidden gems. The excitement surrounding the 2006 Roosevelt dime shows no signs of slowing down. More people are learning about error coins, more people are checking their pocket change, and more people are discovering that valuable coins aren't always ancient, rare, or locked away in museums. Sometimes, they're right in front of you disguised as everyday money. Maybe the next person to find a valuable dime is watching this video right now. Maybe that next priceless error coin is already sitting in your house, waiting for you to take a closer look. And who knows? Maybe tomorrow you'll pick up a little silver-colored coin worth 10 cents and discover that it's actually worth thousands, or even over $100,000. That is the magic of coin collecting and the reason why the 2006 Roosevelt dime remains one of the most exciting modern era coins in US history. Imagine holding a coin so small, so ordinary, so familiar that you wouldn't look twice at it, until you discover that this same tiny dime has sold for as much as $144,000. Yes, a 1999 Roosevelt dime, the coin many people toss into tip jars or leave in car cup holders, has shocked collectors with a price tag reaching up to $33,250 on the low end and a staggering $144,000 at high-grade auctions. And the crazy part? Most people who owned one never realized what they had. That's why today we're diving into the unbelievable story of the 1999 Roosevelt dime era coin, a coin that looks common but hides a rare mistake that transformed it into a small treasure capable of changing someone's life in an instant. It all begins in the late 1990s at the Philadelphia Mint, a place buzzing with machines striking millions of coins a day. The Roosevelt dime had already been circulating for decades, featuring the iconic profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse and the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse. Everything about this coin was routine, predictable, and unexciting, or at least that's what people thought. But 1999 was a year when something slipped through the cracks, something so unusual that it would later spark excitement, confusion, and high-stakes bidding wars among coin collectors everywhere. Picture a mint employee watching the presses move at lightning speed, blank planchets flying into place, dies slamming down thousands of times per minute. When production runs at that scale, even one tiny shift or misalignment can create an error. And that's exactly what happened. The 1999 Roosevelt dime errors often involve misstrikes, off-center strikes, die breaks, broad strikes, or wrong planchet minting, mistakes that might seem minor to the untrained eye but are like gold to serious collectors. These errors were never meant to exist. They were accidental, unexpected, and extremely limited, which is exactly why the value of some examples skyrocketed. Imagine someone in 1999 paying for a coffee using a dime that could have been worth more than the coffee shop itself. That's how unnoticed these coins were. They slipped into pockets, cash drawers, piggy banks, and handfuls of spare change. Maybe they were dropped on kitchen floors, forgotten in winter coats, or tossed into donation jars without any idea of their hidden value. For years, these rare 1999 era dimes moved silently through everyday routines, just waiting to be rediscovered. What makes the story even more fascinating is the way collectors began uncovering them. Someone sorting through an old jar of coins found a dime that looked slightly off-center. Someone else noticed an unusually thick rim. Another person found one that seemed too light or too heavy, something that made them pause. A few sent their coins to grading services, expecting maybe a minor error worth a few dollars, and instead were told they had stumbled upon one of the rarest Roosevelt dime errors from the late 20th century. It wasn't long before auction houses were listing these coins, and bidders were battling it out, pushing prices from a few thousand into tens of thousands, and finally reaching the jaw-dropping $144,000 mark for the highest quality, most dramatic errors. The 1999 Roosevelt dime became a quiet sensation. Collectors who had ignored modern coins for years suddenly shifted their attention. People started examining their pocket change, flipping every dime over to look for odd spacing, unusual metal textures, or misaligned sides. Even the general public became curious, wondering if a small silver-colored coin in their home could be hiding a life-changing surprise. The beauty of this story is that the coin doesn't need to be ancient or extremely old to be valuable. It simply needs to have the right kind of mistake. Errors like these are like frozen moments in time, tiny accidents that survive the strict quality control of one of the world's most advanced mints. Each error coin becomes a piece of minting history, a physical testimony to the unpredictability of human-run machinery. And because the mint corrected the problem quickly, only a handful of 1999 Roosevelt dime error coins remain, making them incredibly scarce. Collectors love them not just for their rarity but because each error tells a different story. One coin might show a dramatic off-center strike that reveals blank planchet. Another might show a doubled image where the die shifted between strikes. Some may have broad strikes giving them a stretched look. Others might have mistakenly been struck on a foreign planchet meant for another denomination entirely. These variations add personality and mystery to every individual coin, making each one feel unique, almost like a fingerprint from the minting process. Imagine someone purchasing a roll of dimes from the bank, expecting nothing more than the usual shiny modern coins, only to find one with a strange strike that turns out to be a five-figure treasure. For collectors, that thrill of discovery is priceless. For non-collectors, the shock of learning that a dime can be worth $100,000 is even greater. As time goes on, the chances of finding one of these 1999 era dimes in circulation shrink dramatically. Every year more of them get discovered, graded, and locked away in private collections, museums, or auction archives. Once they're taken out of circulation, they rarely come back. That means whatever is left in the wild becomes even more valuable. The survival rate keeps dropping, while demand keeps increasing, and that combination drives prices upward. If you're holding a 1999 dime right now, it might be worth taking a closer look. Examine the rim. Check the alignment. Look at the details on Roosevelt's portrait. Flip it over and study the torch and branches. Even a small irregularity could be a clue. Millions of ordinary 1999 dimes exist, but only a handful contain the kinds of errors that push collectors into bidding wars. What makes this coin so exciting is that it proves treasure doesn't always come in the form of gold bars or ancient relics. Sometimes it's a tiny dime hiding in plain sight. A coin that once bought a stick of gum or paid a parking meter could now buy a car, or even a house. The idea that something so small can hold so much value is part of what keeps the world of coin collecting endlessly fascinating. So whether you're a long-time collector or someone just curious about what might be hiding in your loose change, the 1999 Roosevelt dime era coin is a reminder that extraordinary things can come from the most ordinary places. And who knows, maybe one day, you'll open a drawer, go through an old coin jar, and find a dime that quietly carries a story worth up to $144,000. If you've got coins at home, now is the perfect time to check them. The next rare error could be sitting inches away, waiting to change your life the moment you notice something unusual. Sometimes all it takes is a second look to uncover something extraordinary. The moment you pick up an ordinary dime, it feels like nothing more than a small piece of metal. But every now and then, a coin that looks completely normal at first glance ends up being the kind of treasure collectors spend years searching for. And the 2008 Roosevelt dime is exactly that kind of coin. What makes it even more fascinating is that thousands of people have seen this coin, touched it, spent it, and never realized that a rare era version of it could secretly be worth anywhere from $17,650 to an unbelievable $119,000 depending on the condition and rarity of the mistake. So today, I want to take you on a journey into this little dime's world because behind this tiny piece of metal lies a story that surprises even experienced collectors. The year 2008 was interesting for US coinage. The Denver Mint was producing millions of dimes, and like every year, the goal was perfection, precision, flawless execution. But as every collector knows, no mint in history has ever been perfect. Machines misalign, dies wear out, metal planchets shift, and every once in a while these imperfections create something extraordinary. Something unplanned. Something valuable. And it just so happens that one of those rare moments occurred in 2008, turning an everyday coin into a potential fortune. Most people who have handled the 2008 D dime probably never even gave it a second thought. They dropped it in change jars, vending machines, car cup holders, or pockets. Yet inside those coins, a select few hide errors so unique that professional graders and auction houses have labeled them some of the most desirable accidental creations of the modern Roosevelt dime series. Collectors especially love this coin because of the variety of errors known to exist. Some of the dimes from that year were struck on the wrong planchet entirely, giving them a completely different weight and tone. Others have dramatic off-center strikes, where the image shifts so much that it looks like the portrait of Roosevelt is sliding out of the coin itself. And then there are those breathtaking double die strikes, where subtle but powerful doubling on the date, motto, or lettering transforms the coin into an unmistakable rarity. A few of the known 2008 D-era dimes even show partial missing layers, revealing an unusual, almost copper-colored texture beneath the surface. Errors like these don't just catch the attention of collectors, they spark bidding wars. Imagine someone cleaning out a drawer, spotting a shiny dime, and tossing it aside without realizing the truth. Meanwhile, a collector somewhere else is studying photos and auction records, willing to pay thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, to add the exact kind of dime that person just ignored. That's the magic of the coin world. You never know what you're holding until you look closely. And the 2008 D Roosevelt dime demands attention. One of the wildest parts of this story is how unpredictable the value of these coins can be. You might think a small coin like this wouldn't make much difference, but rarity changes everything. A perfectly preserved era dime with sharp details, no scratches, and a dramatic mint mistake can sell for life-changing numbers. At least one high-grade 2008 D-era dime sold at auction for a staggering five-figure amount, and that event alone shocked collectors because they didn't expect modern dimes to hit that range. Some people still don't believe that a tiny Roosevelt dime could reach values up to $119,000. But the market proved it. When collectors want something rare, they chase it relentlessly. This is also why so many people across the country have begun checking their jars and boxes full of pocket change. It sounds almost unbelievable that one small dime with the right era could cover several months of bills, pay for a car, or even clear someone's debt. But it happens. Coin history is full of these surprise stories. Someone thinks they have pocket change, but a sharp-eyed collector tells them they're holding a treasure. And the 2008 D dime continues to be one of those coins that keeps surprising people. When you look at the design of the Roosevelt dime, it's simple, elegant, and stable. Roosevelt's portrait on the front, the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the back representing unity, peace, and strength. It's a coin Americans handle every day. But the irony is that the stability of the design makes errors even more noticeable. When something looks off, even slightly, it jumps out fast. On the 2008 D dime, the most valuable pieces are the ones with dramatic flaws that collectors instantly recognize. A shifted strike, a missing element, visible doubling on the date, misaligned edges, anything that stands out becomes a reason for collectors to place high bids. Another surprising detail is that many collectors consider the 2008 D dime one of the most exciting modern-era coins because the minting technology by then was much more advanced. Errors were becoming less frequent, making any major mistake from the 2000s even more valuable. In earlier decades, errors were more common because machinery was older and production volumes were intense. But by 2008, precision was expected. So when something went wrong during that year, it meant the mistake was highly unusual. And in coin collecting, unusual means valuable. Think about how many dimes pass through your hands in a month. Maybe dozens, maybe hundreds. Now imagine that somewhere among those ordinary coins sits a dime that was never meant to look the way it does. A tiny flaw that happened in a split second at the Denver Mint but now carries a price tag bigger than some vintage cars. That's what keeps collectors excited. The possibility. The chance that one day a regular person could look down and realize the dime in their hand isn't worth 10 cents, it's worth a fortune. Collectors always advise people to inspect key areas on these dimes. Look carefully at the edges. Check the alignment. Study the date. Examine the lettering, the portrait, and the reverse design. Use a magnifying glass if you can. Sometimes the difference between a common dime and a rare one is so small that you would miss it if you weren't paying attention. And when values stretch into the tens of thousands of dollars, attention is definitely worth your time. What makes this even more exciting is how this coin continues to rise in value. Every year, as collectors compete to find the best preserved versions and rarest errors, the demand grows. That demand pushes prices higher, and the rare examples can climb fast. The $17,650 to $119,000 range is no exaggeration when the right error and the right condition meet at the right auction. So when you hear stories about people finding rare coins and change, remember that the 2008 Roosevelt dime is one of the coins that can make those stories real. It's a modern treasure disguised as a normal dime. A gem hidden in plain sight. And if you happen to come across one of these error dimes someday, you'll understand exactly why collectors treat them like precious artifacts of American minting history. The story of the 2005 Roosevelt dime begins in a place no one ever expects great value to hide, inside ordinary pockets, jars, and drawers across America. Think about it, a coin so small, often ignored, sometimes tossed aside, yet capable of holding a secret so powerful that a single piece can sell for as much as $103,000. Most collectors overlook the early 2000s Roosevelt dimes, assuming that nothing special came from those modern minting years. But the truth is far more surprising. The 2005 dime, particularly the rare error varieties, has quietly become one of the most sought-after treasures among modern coin hunters, thanks to mistakes born on the factory floor that escaped into circulation before anyone could stop them. It all starts in Denver, inside the massive U.S. Mint facility where millions of dimes were struck that year. Machines move fast, striking blank planchets at incredible speed, and with so much pressure and repetition, the smallest misalignment or contaminant can create errors that go unnoticed. Some of these mistakes are subtle, others are dramatic and instantly eye-catching. For the 2005 dimes, the errors that have driven collectors wild include off-center strikes, double die obverse, partial collar errors, broad strikes, and even dramatic missing clad layer errors. These mistakes may look like imperfections to the untrained eye, but to collectors, they are rare fingerprints, unique marks that make each error coin one of a kind. Imagine holding a dime and realizing the outer layer is missing on one side, revealing the raw copper core underneath. Or discovering that Roosevelt's portrait is shifted far to one side, leaving a thick blank crescent of metal where details should be. These aren't damaged coins, they were minted that way, which is exactly what makes them valuable. And in a surprising twist, the most extreme and cleanly defined error examples can fetch thousands at auction, with some reaching as high as $19,000 to $103,000 depending on rarity, condition, and the uniqueness of the error. That price tag alone has turned this little dime into a big mystery for many modern treasure hunters. The story gets even more interesting when you look at how many of these coins slipped into everyday circulation unnoticed. People used them to buy gum, parking meters, vending machine snacks, and never realized they were holding a miniature fortune. Years later, someone sorting through pocket change might pause and wonder why their dime looks strange. A closer inspection reveals that one side is oddly smooth, or the strike is shifted, or the rim looks melted or stretched. What most people throw away as damage might actually be an authentic mint error quietly holding thousands of dollars in value. That's the magic of modern error coins. Fortune often hides in plain sight. Collectors usually get excited about older coins, wheat pennies, early nickels, silver quarters, but modern mint errors have their own loyal following. Many enthusiasts argue they're even more exciting because these mistakes happened in our own lifetime. They aren't relics from 80 or 100 years ago, they're artifacts from the modern minting era, and that connection makes them more relatable. The 2005 Roosevelt dime represents this perfectly. It's modern, simple, and common on the surface, yet with the right combination of minting mistakes, it becomes a highly prized rarity. To appreciate why the 2005 dime errors are so desirable, you have to understand how precise modern minting normally is. Machines are designed to minimize mistakes. Technology reduces human error, and quality control is far better than in earlier decades. That means when errors do happen today, they're considered more unusual, and scarcity is what drives value. It's not just that an error occurred, it's that it occurred in a system built to prevent it. When collectors see a dramatic off-center strike or a dime struck without the proper cladding, they know it survived a minting process that tries very hard to avoid such flaws. That rarity increases their excitement and willingness to pay a premium. One of the most eye-catching 2005 errors is the missing clad layer. Normally, dimes are made from a copper core with a protective nickel-copper alloy on the outside. When that outer layer is missing on one side or entirely, the coin looks like it has two different personalities. One side is silver-colored and familiar, the other is copper and raw. These coins grab attention instantly and are among the highest-priced pieces from this year. The more dramatic the look, the more collectors are willing to outbid one another. Then there are the off-center strikes. A dime struck 5, 10, or even 20% off-center is both visually striking and rare. When Roosevelt's face is shifted too far left or right, and the lettering appears partially cut off, collectors take notice. The key is completeness. If the date remains visible, the value skyrockets. A well-preserved, highly off-center 2005 dime with a full date can command massive prices. Another powerful driver of value is condition. For modern errors, collectors want coins with crisp surfaces, bright luster, and minimal wear. Mint state designations from grading companies like PCGS or NGC can elevate a coin's worth dramatically. A dramatic error in circulated condition may be worth hundreds or thousands, but the same error in pristine mint state can go 5x or 10x higher. That's how the top-tier 2005 error dimes reach those high numbers: clean surfaces, dramatic errors, and exceptional preservation. Story after story has emerged of collectors discovering expensive 2005 dimes in pocket change, coin counting machines, inherited collections, or old jars forgotten in closets. These discoveries don't just bring money, they bring excitement and validation. Coin collecting feels like a treasure hunt for a reason, and the idea that a normal-looking dime could hold a secret worth tens of thousands keeps people searching every day. It's not a fantasy, it's reality, and auction records prove it. So what should people look for today? Any dime from 2005 that looks unusual is worth closer inspection. A shifted strike, a missing layer, a distorted rim, a thicker or thinner than usual planchet, doubling in the letters or numbers, a smooth texture where details should be, all of these could indicate a valuable error. Even small anomalies can be worth getting evaluated because collectors love anything that deviates from perfection. That's what makes this coin so magnetic. It reminds people that even in a world of machines, perfection is not guaranteed. Mistakes still escape the mint, and those mistakes can turn an ordinary 10-cent piece into a life-changing surprise. When you realize that some of these tiny errors have sold for $19,000 to $103,000, suddenly every dime in your pocket feels like a mystery waiting to be solved. The 2005 Roosevelt dime is proof that modern coins can hold remarkable value and that era coins will always fascinate collectors with their uniqueness. Every flaw tells a story about the moment it was struck, the conditions inside the mint, and the path the coin traveled afterward. And for those fortunate enough to find one of these rare gems, that story becomes part of their own. Imagine holding a tiny silver-colored dime from 1990, something so ordinary that millions of people have tossed it into pockets, jars, glove compartments, gas station counters, and vending machines without giving it a second thought. Now imagine discovering that this same small dime, this same coin that most people ignore, could actually be worth more than a luxury car, more than a year's salary, more than what some people earn in a decade. That's exactly the kind of shock the 1990 Roosevelt dime has given collectors, a coin that seems simple on the surface but hides an error that transformed it into a rare treasure. People who first learned that this tiny coin had sold for between $35,600 and $191,650 could barely believe it. How could something so common become something so valuable? That's where the real story begins. The 1990 Roosevelt dime comes from a time when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins each year, rushing to meet the demands of a nation constantly moving, buying, selling, trading, and spending. Dimes were a crucial part of everyday transactions. They still are. But during this massive production, mistakes sometimes slipped through, and one of those mistakes created one of the most incredible error coins of the modern era. When collectors see the year 1990 and the Denver Mint, DE mint mark, they don't usually think rare or exceptional, but the moment they spot the error, everything changes. It's like watching a simple pebble suddenly reveal a diamond hidden inside. Some of the most valuable 1990 D dimes feature dramatic mint errors, off-center strikes, broad strikes, double strikes, or mysterious planchet mistakes that distort the coin in ways that instantly attract collectors. While most mint errors are small and barely noticeable, these rare versions of the 1990 D Roosevelt dime show errors so striking that it's impossible not to stare. A coin slightly off-center might be worth a few dollars, but a coin dramatically misstruck, where the design looks shifted, stretched, or incomplete, is where the value skyrockets. That's the kind of rarity that pushes collectors into bidding wars and drives prices far beyond what anyone could imagine. But what really makes this coin special is the combination of error severity, condition, and rarity. When all three align, that's when the magic happens. A collector finding a nearly flawless error example in high grade is like discovering a treasure chest buried in plain sight. Some people have found these coins in old jars, forgotten envelopes, or inherited collections that hadn't been touched in decades. One person even found a valuable 1990 D dime tucked between two old receipts in a wallet they hadn't used in years. That moment when they realized what they were holding is something they described as unreal, a moment that changed their whole perspective on pocket change. Collectors often say that the Roosevelt dime series doesn't get enough attention, mostly because it's still part of modern currency. But that's exactly why error coins like the 1990 D are so exciting. They challenge the idea that only old coins can be valuable. They show that treasures can still be found in circulation, in change you get back from a grocery store, or in a coin machine at the car wash. That possibility keeps collectors hooked. They know that any day, any moment, one ordinary-looking coin could turn out to be something extraordinary, and the story of the 1990 D dime becomes even more fascinating when you think about how many people handled these coins without noticing anything unusual. A cashier hands it over. A child drops it in a piggy bank. Someone tosses it on a table next to their keys. The coin moves, unnoticed, unappreciated, until one sharp-eyed person sees something strange. Maybe the rim looks off, maybe the design looks shifted, maybe the coin appears stretched or incomplete. That's the moment curiosity sparks, and the hunt begins. When coin grading experts examine these rare 1990 D dimes, they look at every detail under magnification: the shine of the surface, the crispness of the lines, the clarity of the misprint, the strength of the strike. They check whether the coin was damaged after minting or if the error happened during production, because only a true mint error carries enormous value. And when they confirm it's authentic, the excitement becomes real. That's when collectors line up, bids rise, and prices reach astonishing levels. The most dramatic examples of the 1990 D dime have been auction stars, pulling in serious attention from collectors around the world. When an error coin with exceptional clarity, high grade, and a dramatic mint mistake hits the auction floor, people know something special is about to happen. That's how these coins reach those breathtaking prices, selling for between $35,600 and $191,650, a range no one ever expected for a modern dime. Those numbers alone are enough to make anyone reevaluate the change sitting in their home. One of the great motivations behind collecting modern errors like this one is the thrill of discovery. Unlike ancient coins or rare historical pieces, which require connections or large budgets, error coins from the 20th century can still be found by ordinary people. All it takes is attention, patience, and a bit of luck. Holding a coin that defied the minting process, survived circulation, and eventually revealed its hidden rarity feels like holding a secret that only a few people in the world have unlocked. The 1990 D Roosevelt dime also holds sentimental value for many Americans. It represents a familiar design that has been part of everyday life for generations. Franklin D. Roosevelt's portrait has appeared on the dimes since 1946, a tribute to his leadership and his impact on the nation. Even though the design seems simple, each minting year has its own identity, and each mint era becomes a unique piece of history. It's not just a coin, it's a snapshot of time, a record of the moment something went wrong at the mint but somehow ended up creating something remarkable. For collectors just starting their journey, the 1990 D dime serves as a lesson: never overlook the small details. A tiny shift in design, a slightly wider rim, a faint doubling of letters, these subtle clues can point to extraordinary value. Many people have thrown away rare coins without knowing their worth because they didn't take the time to look closely. That's why seasoned collectors always say, check your change. Even today, people continue to find these rare dimes unexpectedly. Some appear in coin rolls purchased from banks. Others show up in old jars that families have kept for decades. And every time one surfaces, it reminds the collecting world that modern era coins are far from ordinary. They are unpredictable, fascinating, and full of surprises. So the next time you have a handful of change, take a moment to look at each coin. Because one day, you might be the person who discovers another rare 1990 D Roosevelt dime hiding in plain sight. A coin that began as a simple 10-cent piece but became a symbol of unexpected fortune. A coin that teaches us that value isn't always measured by size, and that sometimes the smallest discoveries can bring the biggest rewards.